Everything hurt. From her hips to her legs to the red claw marks down her back, everything ached. And it was wonderful. The sun rolled in through the window as gently as sun rolled off of her onto the sweaty mattress and breathed a heavy sigh. Dogpile wasn't really sure when his eyes no longer made her feel naked, when the silences stopped being awkward, when being close felt more natural than being apart. 2 years ago, she could have never imagined any of it. Laying warm in the sun, in the still quiet of the room, feeling his eyes on her skin, and being simply happy. A deep chuckle escaped Sun's throat. This time I really have to go. My mother's on another one of her amazing tirades. You skip out another one of her fancy little shindigs. Amusement registered in the copper's features as he considered that, in a manner of speaking. Can't wait to hear this one. What'd you fucking do this time? Sunsteel worked his jaw a moment, uncertain. This is probably not the right time to talk about it. Moreover, you probably don't really want to know. So saying, he offered an apologetic smile, one claw raised to brush the tangled hair from her face. Oh my god, you're embarrassed. You're never embarrassed. Now I want to know. I'm going to be the biggest pain in your ass forever and a day till you say, and I got 3 little brothers who's master of them dark arts. A sinister smirk spread across the girl's lips. Sighing, the dragonborn folded his arms behind his head. Gods have mercy. If you must know, my mother is making another gallant attempt to marry me off to a cousin. One ideally distant enough not to be awkward, but close enough to keep the money in the right places. Again, he worked his jaw. I'm not fond of the idea. Distracted, Dogpile ran a hand down the man's arm from shoulder to wrist. The scales showed almost gold in the sunlight, smooth like glass, hard like boiled leather. You're not even paying attention, of course. Sun shook his head, vague amusement carried in his low rumble. Nah, I hear ya. I'm just having fun imagining your ma if she knew you was here with me. Probably sputter like a dying fish, swallow her tongue and die. A hearty rumble escaped in a laugh. Now there's a beautiful image. Dear gods, I might actually pay to see that. Laughter shone in the copper scale's eyes as he watched her. Dogpile's smirk spread into a terrible grin that cracked half her face as she clambered over the man to straddle his belly. You should marry me. An amused snort escaped Sun's snout. Oh, ha ha. You don't even want me in your house. That's different. You won't even let me buy you things. 'Cause I ain't a whore. Things for your family. Ain't a whore. Sun rolled his eyes. I'm not having this argument with you again, but seriously, I have to get up. Dogpile's nose pressed in close to his, the grin on her broad face wild and immovable. You should marry me. Sunsteel propped his elbows beneath him, giving the girl an incredulous look. Dear gods, you're serious, aren't you? Yep. Sunsteel closed his eyes a moment, a sigh rolling out of his chest. You know that's not possible. This time Dogpile snorted, hiking her brows with mocking amusement. What, you scared? Afraid you'll lose your daddy's coin? The Dragonborn frowned, arching a brow. Hardly. That would be my older brothers. Third-born sons don't have quite the same sway with the family coffers. And that's not the point. Then what are the point? A wry flickering smirk was all that remained as the girl touched the pointed horn on his nose. Very funny. No, really, I'm listening. If you're third-born and you ain't gonna drain their coffers dry, ain't nobody ought to care. I don't get it. Why can't we just, she shrugged lamely. A pained look entered the Dragonborn's eyes as he gently pushed her off of his belly and rose to sit on the bed. You seriously don't know. The man's brow furrowed deeply. Dogpile only shook her head. Rubbing the scales of his brow with a claw, he sighed. Look, there might not be much expected of me by my family, but, well, one day I need to have a family. The earnest look the man gave her did nothing to fill the silence that, for the first time in maybe a year, was awkward to bear. The girl eventually narrowed her eyes, her chin jutting out in her usual way. So, It's not like I want to go changing diapers any day soon. That much is true. She paused, shrugging. If I ever did, if I ever wanted, it'd be with you. The hard eyes landed on the copper scale then, firm and fierce as ever, every syllable a promise. I could mother your kids still. For you. She could almost see the moment behind the copper's eyes when he considered it, and it was gone in under a second. Dogpile, you don't... Ugh. Gods, how do I even say this? What would even happen? Could we even... And... He trailed off, snapping his jaws closed, and for a moment looking desperately guilty. Dogpile's teeth began to show behind her lips, locked together in an iron jaw. What? Waving a claw, Sun shook his head. We're not having this conversation. Bullshit, we ain't. What? The words finally pried from his lips like a pained growl. What if we can't? What if we try and it kills you? Eggs are hard enough on most women, but you? What if they weren't born copper scale? What if they had no scales at all? The silence that fell was cold and terrible. Both could hear the creak of the floorboards in the hall outside. Voices outside the window sold strawberries and bread. The warm sun felt cold on her bare skin. Dogpile drew a sheet from the bed to cover herself. Please. The copper scale winced. I didn't mean it like... No, I didn't... Damn it. But really, just think about it for a second. Realistically, what kind of life could we offer them? My family, they'd never understand. They'd cut me out, both of us, and anyone else that came along. You of all people must understand. I can't just leave my family. Running a hand down the back of his head, his eyes fixed themselves on the floorboards. I always thought you knew. Somewhere a crow cawed outside. Look, dog, I don't want anything from you. You don't have to be all of that. My brothers, they're practically only with their wives on formal occasions. After my nephews were born, I think Realgar avoided the marriage bed altogether. Not that I blame him. The flickering smirk that appeared on Sun's face faded in an instant. His eyes softened as he took her hand in his claw. Dog, I never wanted to leave you. I don't plan on it. It just has to be different. Look, I can even buy a house for us, for you and your brothers, put you all up someplace. Your brother won't have to ever steal again. You wouldn't have to worry anymore. Slowly, slowly, like the uncoiling of an angry python, she turned her head to look at him. Her jaw locked as tight as a steel trap. The hand in his claw balled into fists. I love you. The words almost died in her throat. The copperscale smiled gently, canting his head to see the face under the swath of wild hair. And I love you. But I ain't gonna be your horror steal. You're not... Gods, that's not even what I'm saying, woman. The scowl that met him gnashed vicious white teeth. Then what? That I'm good enough to roll around with, but not good enough to own to? Not good enough for your family? Not good enough to mother your idiot kids? Dogpile, fuck you! The words that left her breathless tore the curtains from the window and shattered the mirror on the wall. A few drops of blood trickled between the coppery scales on Sunsteel's face. For a moment, the crow was quiet. Voices outside the window forgot their strawberries and bread. Rocket was sunning himself on the roof when she came home. Brightcrest would be halfway to Dunmar by now, and only the gods knew where to find Daggertongue these days. She gathered her cloak, the bow and arrows in a moment, and was out the door. From his perch on the roof, Rocket watched as she paused to cast the place one final look. His eyes traveled from the cloak and bow to her face with a worried sadness that made her stomach twist in an angry knot. It was harder than usual to clear her throat, but she barked up at the youth who sat on the roof. I'm going. Tell your brother if he comes home. House is yours. Or not, if you don't want it. Rocket paused a moment, staring as the words seemed to slowly unfold in his brain. After a moment, he slid down the crooked tiles and hopped the last several feet to the ground. The red-scaled arms that wrapped around her squeezed like a vice before letting go. Be safe, sister. You too, kid. And she was gone.